Welcome to Wonderspace. It's great to have you on board. My name is Steve Cole, and over the past 71 episodes, I have been asking the same 6 questions to amazing people from around the world. The questions orbit around wonder and stories of hopefulness, and the setting for each journey is the shared window on the space station, from where we see everything from a different perspective. Before we introduce our guest this week, our friends at asknature.org are going to help us to re-wonder.
Bats are artists, and they paint with sound. Human painters know well that in raking light, which shines nearly parallel to a surface as the sun does at dawn and dusk, shadows are greatly extended, making tiny objects and textures dramatically more visible. Bats make use of the same effect with raking sound. By angling their high-pitched chirps to either side of an object of interest, the echo comes back not as a bright, direct beam, but in steeply angled waves that exaggerate details and any change in position of the object, revealing more information to the bat with every sound it makes.
Our orbit this week will take us over cities such as Bradford in the north of England. And to experience these views with us, in this ultimate window seat, we welcome Evie Manning. Evie is the co-founder and artistic director of Commonwealth Theatre, based in Bradford and Cardiff. They are known as a company that takes theatre out of its conventional comfort zones, and were nominated by the team at Good Chance, who are the creators of The Jungle and The Walk with Amal.
Hi, I'm Dina from Good Chance. We're nominating Evie from Commonwealth Theatre because we think they're making really exciting work with the people, for the people, and it's something that we at Good Chance really believe in. And Evie is a powerhouse that's bringing important issues to public spaces in a really exciting and innovative way. Hope you enjoy.
The full-length interview can be heard on the Wonderspace podcast, which can be found on our website and on most podcast platforms. For this video orbit, Evie answers 2 of our 6 questions and starts by giving us a glimpse into her life story so far, with an emphasis on what she is doing currently.
Really just started making plays like in my back garden with the kids from the area, and we were just always out. We'd make kids in the old people's home. We'd do all sorts. We'd basically just be out and about all day long from morning till night, like a true 80s kid. And so we were kind of always making and scrapping around. And then I just always knew I had this instinct for wanting to do performance and make something. And I met a really lovely older actor who's in his 80s who said, when you first get into acting, you think acting is about showing off and getting attention, which is what every kid wants on some level. But then as you kind of get older, you realise that it's about sharing attention. And I thought that was such a beautiful way of putting it, because it's about like, how do we share what we want to focus on, who we are. Anyway, sorry, that was a bit of a tangent. Commonwealth, when we first started, we were very DIY. We were working in big squatted buildings, just taking over buildings, working with lots of different artists, and it was all pretty renegade because we didn't have permission to be in those places. So we were just kind of making it happen and doing it and not really caring about any legalities or anything that told us we couldn't do it. We were just kind of going en masse, taking over buildings. And we might negotiate something with the landlord at some point, but really we were just pretty direct action in squatting, basically, and making really big, ambitious pieces. So actually the early days of Commonwealth were when we were at our most ambitious, I'd say, because we were working in like 30 rooms and we had no boundaries really to stop us. Then I had my son, and I moved back to live with my mum when I was pregnant, and I was in the attic, and then basically an ambulance was called for my next door neighbour. And it turned out that her and her children had been experiencing very extreme domestic abuse for years. And I was her friend, I knew her, and this thing really struck me that just on the other side of the wall, this was happening and I didn't know about it. And so started to think about what it would be to take our style of theatre that we'd been doing, which was taking over big buildings and working simultaneously, and then making a piece about domestic abuse that happened in a house and was simultaneous and promenade and all those things we'd been doing in the big squatted adventurous places, but doing it about domestic abuse. And that really was when Commonwealth was kind of born in a serious way, and we really became much more socially engaged and thinking about what change we could make with our work. So that ended up being a show called Our Glass House, which toured to different houses across the country. And on the journey of that show, it was pretty extraordinary because we worked with the Scottish police force and managed to change the law on policing and how policing was viewed of domestic abuse in Scotland. We worked with all level of people, basically. We worked with health and social care workers, with midwives, with police. So the show itself was like it became like a training tool, but then it also was a massive intervention in kind of local areas, because we would be in a normal house on a residential street, and so we'd have loads of local people and people who'd never been to the theatre before would come and see the show. But it also became a bit of a talking point, because people would come up to us in the street and say, "Oh, have you made the play about domestic abuse? Like, I've got my friend and I know he's hurting his wife and I don't know what to do." And so it was such a kind of amazing intervention in a way for our kind of creative journeys, because it was all the things we wanted to do. Like, it was like literal street theatre, because we were on people's streets making theatre, like quite unusual stuff that no one's really seen before, because it was almost like an installation. It was like live art with live compositions. It was really beautiful as a piece of art, but then really directly with people. And so I think that play being our kind of first proper one, because it's when we first got some funding and we kind of took it seriously. And my son was like 6 months old when we started that and came on tour with us, and I just brought him along for the ride as well. So all of that really defined the company, I think. So since then, Commonwealth, we've been making all our shows are site specific. They're all political. More and more they're with people who are co-creators, so people who are making work from their own lived experience. So nearly every show we've made now in the last 10 years has been people's lived experience. And the last show we made, just to bring it up to date, it was Peaceophobia. And Peaceophobia was made with 3 young Muslim men who are also car enthusiasts. So they're really passionate about modifying their engines and cars. And they're kind of using that in a way as an escape from lots of different things. So the piece is really about Islamophobia. And it's exploring how modified car culture and Islam and the practice of Islam and faith can be a kind of antidote to the Islamophobia that shapes a lot of the young men's lives. And that piece was really unique because I co-directed that show with 6 young women from Speaker's Corner. So Speaker's Corner is a young political kind of creative social space. It's been going for 5 years. And it's mainly young women. It's young women led, but we say it's open to everybody. But it's young women led, mainly Muslim women. And they make campaigns. So there's like a campaign model at Speaker's Corner, which is what do you want to say about the world? And then they'll make a campaign, which sometimes has a creative output, or sometimes it's more of a protest, or the kind of expression of what they want to say is different. And with Peaceophobia, it started as a campaign, it started as a car rally. And then it developed with Speaker's Corner and with the young men to become a play. So I'm really proud of the kind of evolution of that as a way of working, and kind of excited about what that means for the future, like how you can really take something from a campaign and build it, not just the co-creators being in it, but also shaping it as directors, essentially, and sharing that power. So my story of hopefulness is someone called Ibra, who is based in Bradford, and basically he lives in a community called Bradford Moor, which is just around the corner, and there was a patch of kind of grass, like a little park that was a very underused park, and there'd been quite a lot of violence there with teenagers. And Ibra was diagnosed with cancer and basically had quite a bit of time on his hands, and he was in recovery. And then he basically just decided to repopulate this little park. So he's really taken it on himself as like a personal mission. One of the first things he did, and this is just beautiful, he bought like a chicken coop. So basically, he again did it without any planning permission or any permission from the council. He just thought, no one cares about this land. It is technically council property, but he built a chicken coop, and it's really for all of the elders. So there's a lot of like older men who then come and feed the chickens. But obviously that also engages young children. So there's this chicken coop, and then it's also now a peacock kind of farm. So they're breeding peacocks. So there's loads of peacocks walking around. And then he did all of this off his own back. He bought a container and put this container there, and then went round to all the houses and asked everyone if they had a spare bike in their cellar or a broken bike they didn't use, filled this container with bikes, and then he literally just gives them away. So it's not even like a loan project. But really what he's done essentially is he's kind of created this little kind of real, like again, like an ecosystem of people on this little park area. And so now the teenagers still hang out there, but they're kind of hanging out and talking about the chickens. Do you see what I mean? And there's just that engagement at all the different levels. And so when I've gone down there, because I just love being there, it's just so nice because you literally have like every generation, and there's something about it that's quite leveling. I think having the chickens there and the peacocks, because even if things are feeling a bit tense or whatever's going on, then you can always get distracted by the chickens and the peacocks. But Ibra, he is just totally inspirational because he's not waited for anybody for money or funding or permission. In fact, he actively doesn't want funding because he wants it to be people-led. And he basically, in a really unofficial way, it's not like they have regular meetings or anything, but he will just, if something happens in the area, he'll go and knock on doors and get out people and say, what are we going to do about it? And I just think it's quite extraordinary, really, because he's really shaping his doorstep. It's just like reclaiming the land. So yeah, I think, that's my story of hopefulness.
To find out more about Commonwealth Theatre, go to commonwealththeatre.co.uk. To engage with the previous 71 Wonderspace episodes, go to our website ourwonder.space. I want to thank Evie for joining us on Wonderspace, and I hope you can join us next week for more wonders and stories of hopefulness.